Hello everybody and welcome to my channel, The Real Super Sam. And today is another special and unique episode I had to do today for my channel. And welcome to another hashtag SpiderMan Sunday. The Sandman. He used to be my favorite Spider-Man rogue. I always have and will love supervillains who can change their body into any form, like Clayface, Carnage, and Hydro Man, to name a few. This comic is also my very first Stan Lee Steve Ditko comic I've ever read. I've always checked out and read Saga of the Sandman, a collection of the great Sandman comics of the time. This was the first issue. This was my very first ever read Sandman issue. Like a lot of comics I speak highly of, this isn't just a great story for the supervillain, but a great story for the hero as well. It's great to see a balance between the two characters in anything. In the story, it starts with Spider-Man accidentally stopping some crooks from committing a crime before they actually did anything. Spider-Man gets yelled away by the cop and everyone laughs at him. He blames J. Jonah Jameson for his troubles, and that is an immature thing to do. Blame your problems on somebody else, but he is a new superhero and still a teenager. But he sees a criminal trying to escape from the cops and swings down to greet him. Spidey is shocked when he sees that it's a crook who can shape-shift his body into any Sand-like form, who calls himself the Sandman. He beats Spider-Man easily with his powers. Spider-Man's mask rips, so he runs away. If Sandman or anyone found out, his life would be over. Sandman then goes on a massive crime spree as Spider-Man shows back together his suit. And at the end, there's a great battle showing all sorts of creative, imaginative Sandman powers in Peter's high school. So, Sandman, he's never been a violent criminal. In his first appearance it shows. He doesn't want to fight Spider-Man, he just keeps having to slap Spidey away. I first read this along the time of Spider-Man 3 being released in theaters, and Sandman from there was my first thought of how the character should be. It was pretty spot on, minus his daughter in the movie. Sandman is given his fake real name, Flint Marko, is revealed here. And so is his whole origin, which is on the news. So is his face. Why wasn't he captured yet? It's like Bruce Banner's origin story also, but with sand. He seems like a big deal. Spider-Man says he's wanted from Maine to Mexico. I also love how Sandman brushes Spider-Man off just meeting him for the first time, right after Spider-Man was big stuff and showed him the spider signal to intimidate him. Sandman is the first superpowered villain Spider-Man's ever faced, which is great. Spidey's first time facing a superpowered foe. How can you fight a guy you can't even punch? He's a challenge to Spider-Man, maybe even more than Doc Ock. Sandman, like the Vulture first appearance, in the most classic uniform. Sandman is here with his green striped shirt. This is one of the comic's finest moments, where it shows that the cops are doing their work without Spider-Man, and doing a good job also, enough to even tire the Sandman out. Sandman outshines Spider-Man here, but there's a lot with him also, especially having this be the first proper time we see Peter in high school. It's so classic that everyone loves Spider-Man but hates Peter Parker, and Spidey asks the question that we wish was answered too. This is the first time Spider-Man is attempting to date someone, Liz Allen. He finally gets a chance with her, which is a miracle, but then he cancels. At the end, coincidentally, now that Sandman was so nice to come to his school that he has already beaten him, he says he can go on the date now, and Liz Allen rejects him, and we can see why. On her side, you can't blame her. This is also the very first appearance of Peter's future first love, Betty Brant. These 3 panels are all we get. She doesn't seem to like Peter yet, she just recognizes him, which is a start. It's Principal Davis's first appearance and the first time we hear of Rikers Island, and we really just get the fact that Sandman's a criminal, and that's why he's locked up, nothing else. Aunt May's in it really as just a one-note character, the doting parent. I like how Peter just throws on a robe to hide his costume. He got lucky on that one. Jameson is in here in law also. The back and forth bickering between Peter Parker and him always gives me a laugh. Like here when Pete asks for him, but he brought some pants. We also for the first time get the Daily Bugle newspaper, not the Now magazine. Jameson's response to Peter wanting a raise is golden. This is also the first time Jameson says Spider-Man is someone else, some other disguise to do criminal activities in. Believe it or not, back when I read this comic, I didn't know who Mr. Fantastic was. Crazy. so this reference was weird to me. The fight here was great. I love how brutal some things are done to Sandman, but Spider-Man kind of realized that his move on the bottom won't kill him. This also reminds me of what moment in Spider-Man 3 when he meets Sandman in the armored truck and he gets his arm stuck in him. There's a lot of fun moments during the battle. That is probably the reason the Sandman was my favorite Spider-Man villain back in the day, because of the sheer amount of abilities he could do. And at the end, Spider-Man just tricks him into getting sucked into a vacuum. Here, even as a kid, it seems like a no-duh capture. I like how Spider-Man just does this, and if he was fighting the Fantastic Four or Ant-Man, he would have been defeated by a million-dollar invention created by them. But no, here, Sandman just gets taken down with a handy shop vac Spidey found lying around. Here is a big character moment when Spider-Man says, "Hey, this just happened a few minutes ago. Taking pictures of me jumping in the sand isn't so off to sell to J. Jonah Jameson. Shows us that Pete is still a bit immature, like a kid." When Spider-Man arrives, Jameson demands for Spider-Man to reveal who he really is. Also, Spidey is in front of the American flag. Some think doing this stuff is corny, but I still find it epic and amazing. Spider-Man refuses and leaves. Jameson gets mad and vents about it to the cops, but the cops say they appreciate Spider-Man's help. It seems like the cops like Spidey. Then, for saying that his date with Liz Allen can be back on and she rejects him, Flash laughs and Peter almost loses it, but doesn't hit him in fear of pulverizing him. Then at the end, Peter still loses, even though he was a hero and even beat the villain. People still question his actions and Spider-Man in general. He then questions if he should just give up being Spider-Man, which is a very realistic choice in his position. Before I end, there's a scene here that really evolves Peter Parker's world he lives in, and not just stuff that has to do with Spider-Man. It's here where Principal Davis stands up to Sandman, then gets a swell head after the kids cheer him on. I just really like this scene. It's fun and not an event you'd usually see in a typical action comic. I also love this. Spider-Man thinks he's done with the fight, then Sandman pulls a trick up his sleeve. In the first Sandman battles, it seems he always thinks his webbing will stop Sandman by covering him in it. Obviously, 10 out of 10, Peter Parker has grown into wanting to rightfully be a superhero now, but he still makes mistakes and dumb choices. This also seemed like an issue that revolved around problems Spidey couldn't use his fists to solve: his identity, dates, the school bully, Jameson, and of course, the Sandman. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.